my guest tonight is arguably one of the greatest, and I hate to use this term, one of the greatest character actors of our generation. He burst onto the scene as Norm in the 1996 cult classic Fargo and has made a name for himself on TV, shows like The Drew Carey Show and American Horror Story, as well as movies and hits like Zodiac, The Founder, and the recent Trial of the Chicago 7. In 2017, he made his directorial debut with the feature film Lucky, starring the incredible Harry Dean Stanton. We don't have nearly enough time to talk about this man's illustrious career, so let's dive straight into it. Everyone, please give a huge welcome to my guest tonight, Mr. John Carroll Lynch, everybody.
How are you?
Thank you, sir, for making the time, man. I truly appreciate this.
Pleasure. The pleasure.
I want to dive right in it because it took me hours to go through your IMDb, your wiki, watch interviews. You've been doing this so long, and you've been a part of so many incredible projects. I had to pick a few, so we're not here all night. But first and foremost, I always got to ask, what is your military connection?
My direct military connection is my father served in the Marine Corps. He was a ROTC first lieutenant on his way to Korea when the armistice was signed while he was on a boat on the way over. And as I'm sure you imagine, had the armistice not been signed, we wouldn't be having this conversation because the death toll of first lieutenants in the Marine Corps, particularly first lieutenants in the Marine Corps who came through ROTC and officer training, is not high. So I have the armistice to thank for my presence here today, I believe.
Well, we're so happy that you are. And you said your direct connection. Were you alluding to any other connections? Just curious.
No, well, I mean, my mother's family didn't serve, but my wife's family has people in the military all over it. Her father was the commanding general of the Army of Washington. She's related to Smedley Butler. Okay. Through cousins. But two of my nephews-in-law served. One went to West Point, and the other one served in the Marine Corps. He volunteered. He enlisted. So my wife's family connection is long. But my family, my father was, I think, the first Lynch to serve, and it was through. He really wanted to go to college and law school, and that was the way he could afford that. So it was all GI Bill related. And as he said at the end of his life, he said, "I'm pretty much cradle to grave, social welfare programs." He went to the ROTC. He bought his first house with the GI Bill, went to law school on the GI Bill, and then later in his life, was on Social Security and Medicare. So pretty much. In between, he paid a lot of taxes, and he always said, "I think I'm value added. I think I was value added." Yeah,
you're in the plus category, right? Not the minus.
Yeah, I would
right?
say that he was worth the investment.
There you go. Well, we appreciate him for his service and what he did. It's everybody plays their part and is a role to play. So. Already, by the way, you're getting a lot of love in the chats. I'm not going to keep stopping the show, but everyone loves you. Comments like John's character on Big Sky made me a huge fan. I wasn't going to miss this for the world. Thanks for coming on. A lot of big fans in the chat. Great. So we thank you. Being that this is, which first of all, I'm just going to put it out there, a little peek behind the scenes. John was here and listening to us ramble on for a while there before his appearance, and again, I apologize.
I wanted to get a sense of what the show. There's nothing to apologize for. I wanted to see what the show was like because I had never listened to the show, and if all of a sudden there was stuff on here that I was like, "Oh, I can't support that." I can certainly support rigorous conversation around the importance of the DC universe and whether or not video games. What the themes of the video game films should be, and what the potential plot was that they should have for these video games. So I get it. You're really your finger is on the pulse of the pop culture. That's what I get.
I'm going to clip that and use that in a commercial for the show. So thank you for that. I'm gonna have to sign a release after this so that
I'm happy to give you the zhuzh. Work on the zhuzh.
You took a peek behind the curtain here and you saw what we were about.
I wanted to see what it was like.
So let me ask you, what do you geek out about? Right? And it doesn't have to be,
I mean, I don't know. I don't know if well, I mean, I'm going to be one of those people who, hangs on the fence of acting classes for the rest of my life. I love actors. I love working with actors. I love storytelling. That's what I love to do. And it has become my job, which inevitably means that it's compromised to some degree because you're making a living at it. It's not something you do as an avocation. So you don't simply say no all the time. You want to do things that you may think to yourself, is it good or not? But I've been very fortunate in the things that I've chosen, and that mostly have chosen me, because that's really how it works. But when it comes to storytelling, I'm a passionate devotee.
Right.
So like when you were talking about a video game, I have no idea what it is. But when you're talking about a video game and what the story should be of it, that's the kind of conversation I could spend hours on.
I like that. Well, you fit right in with us, because that's what we do. Talk about story and pacing and character development. We were just, Shazam 2 is the big movie that just came out, and we were talking about, they didn't, the villains didn't feel threatening enough, and this, and so we're weighing the weight of the character, which, real quick, spoiler alert, you play some of the most terrifying, menacing, incredible villains. Not a lot of them with superpowers or anything like that, but you find a way to bring them such life. And this isn't blowing smoke for the sake of the interview and things like that. I truly menacing in even just your. I don't know. We'll get into it. I'm gushing over your work.
Thank you. And I have not seen Shazam: Fury of the Gods. I haven't seen it, so I don't know how it was. I saw the first one and I enjoyed it. I thought it had a nice childlike quality. I used to love that comic book. Billy Batson was one of my favorite transformations. Was from a kid with a crutch to a superhero. Was a really great awesome transformation. Purity of heart, of course, which is a big theme in Captain America and Wonder Woman and other. Of course,
to be a true hero. To be a true hero, you have to be pure of heart.
But there's also the redemptive, superheroes, the ones that are, have had a rough road. I mean, from Bruce Wayne to the alcoholic that is Tony Stark.
That's true. Oh my God, don't sidetrack me, because we could talk about this for hours. I want to talk about you. That's what we're here to talk about. And before
I'm presently not in the MCU or the DCEU, so I'm available for such things.
We're gonna get you in there. I guarantee you there's some great roles for you. We're gonna start a petition right here, right now. Before we dive into your career, I want to give you a chance to, you have a platform, you're a recognizable face, recognizable name. Are there any charities you support or causes that are near and dear to your heart that you want to just promote for a second?
Feeding America, we support that. My wife and I support that a lot. Feeding America, we support Doctors Without Borders, a World Food Kitchen. It's a difficult time to decide what you want to do with any charitable donations you have, because there's so much need and there's so many, really important, dangerous things happening in the world. Feeding people seems to be a clear need at all times, and not just here, but everywhere in the world. And, we have enough food. We just don't. We've decided not to make that a priority in a lot of different places in different ways. So it's, that's important to me. Trying to feed people is important. I like those charities, and Doctors Without Borders is an incredible organization.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, food's kind of a thing we all need. and should all have access to. I mean,
yes, that's what makes us so damn expensive as workers. Is we have these, got to eat, and we got to sleep, and we need a place to rest. It's very expensive.
Basic human needs.
Drones are much less expensive that way.
Easier to maintain too, than a population.
Yep.
Well, thank you. I believe in that as well, and that's such a great thing to hear that you're using your platform to talk about that. Thank you. So a little bit about you. I happen to know, as I've done my homework, that you were born and raised in Colorado, that you graduated the Catholic University of America, which I believe is in DC. You graduated with a Bachelor of Fine Arts in 1986. What I want to know is, when was that point early on in your life where you decided, where you realized this acting thing, this because it's a beast to try to get into, but when did that become like kind of your focal point or something you were interested in tackling?
I was interested in becoming someone else from a very early age. There was a guy in our neighborhood who made films, like little story films with the kids in the neighborhood. And that was really fun. Like what he'd do is he'd shoot the film on Super 16 or 16 millimeter, and then he'd edit it, and then it would be we'd have a block party, and there would be like peach ice cream and badminton, and then at night he'd put a sheet on the garage and show the movie where all the kids on this one street in Denver, and there were a lot of them because there was a lot of Catholic families on that. There were families with 5 and 6 and 4 kids on that block, so there were a lot of kids, and everybody was featured in it. So we did a couple of those, and I really enjoyed that. I had fun doing that as a child. And then my brother was in a production when I was 13. My sister was working on the crew, and my brother was in a production of Camelot. My brother has a lovely singing voice. And he came out, and he started singing the start of Camelot, which is, 3 nights singing the song. And I'm like, I don't understand what's happening to me. I believe that he's a knight. He says he's a knight. He is a knight, but he's my brother. And how does that happen? Why am I believing that? Like, it never occurred to me that the people enacting these things were actually other people. And I became fascinated with that. I was like, oh, that I want to try that. You mean I could believe I'm somebody else for 2 hours of an evening. That sounds like a cool thing to do. And I became really obsessed with that, and took it very, very seriously, much to the chagrin of other people that I did plays with. And I was in Denver at a time where they had this organization, Catholic Youth Services, which had a priest named Dennis Dwyer, who opened a community theater for kids called The Original Scene. And whether you were 8 years old or whether you were 18, there were shows that they would do, and they would do musicals twice a year, and then they started doing straight plays and summer reviews, and you could do plays all year round. And I became I loved it. I just loved doing it.
Oh, it's beautiful. You obviously had from a young age this is what I want to do. Did you have? I hate to add. Did you have a backup plan? Like, what if this didn't work out? What are you? I had a backup plan. I mean, there was no plan of backup. But I mean, I was like, if this doesn't work out, something else will happen. Both of my parents were lawyers, so I guess that was part of the backup plan. My brother became a lawyer, and but my mother said something funny years and years afterwards. She said, after I'd been in the business for a long time, she goes, well, I just thought the business would dissuade you. I didn't think we needed to. I mean, I figured, you'd go to college for it, you'd get your degree, that's fine. You can always go back to law school or go do something else.
you'll find a way to make a living, and then you never had to. And and I thought that that was pretty wise parenting. That she didn't need to, and my father didn't need to spend a lot of time trying to talk me out of it. They came to see everything, and for all the kids who were performers in the family, they came to see everything.
Did you give them a little like, "Ha, I showed you"?
I don't know about that. I did definitely want. The irony is that I did definitely not want to be a lawyer, and I definitely did not want to wear a tie every day. That I did not want to do as a job, and yet then I became an actor, and that means most of the time you wear more than one tie a day, and you have to tie it yourself. That's kind of one of my definitions of a character actor is somebody who can tie their own tie without a mirror. That is a character actor. They're like, what day is it? Oh, it's the blue tie day. Let's get the blue tie, the other jacket, and we'll shoot this other scene.
Real quick, just for all the people in the audience, don't forget this is live. He's here right now. If you have questions for John, by all means, you're getting a lot of love in the chats, and
they have no questions because they're finished with it. They're like, yeah. Oh, there's more.
There's more. King Smith in the chat. King Smith says, I really enjoy hearing people say I became obsessed with it. The passion people have when they become obsessed really shows in their work. So,
well, I mean, I agree with that, and the power of obsession, is clear. One of the movies I've done is Zodiac, and Zodiac is a movie that's about obsession. It's not just it's about the obsession of the Zodiac. It's about the obsession of Robert Graysmith. It's about the obsession that, Mark Ruffalo's character and Robert Downey's character share in the movie. And to some degree, it's about David Fincher's obsession. So it's all about obsession. And obsession can be, obviously, in Zodiac, obsession leads to good or ill.
And sometimes it's a fine line between the two. It's
oftentimes
you find it. And you said something, and I'm gonna key in on it. You called yourself a character actor, and I always feel like that's a dirty word, like, because I feel like if you're on camera and you're speaking lines and you're putting your all in this, you're an actor, right? So even voice actors, I feel like that's an actor.
I mean, it is. There is not really any difference between those are character. I mean, I don't have any problem with calling myself a character actor or an actor. They're both the same thing. I don't know of a job in which an actor is not playing a character, even if it's inside John Malkovich and John Malkovich is playing John Malkovich. That's not John Malkovich. It's a character named John Malkovich, just like the Nick Cage movie recently. It's a character named Nicolas Cage. It's not him. And I think that there's all kinds of ways to skin that fish, there's different relationships with the audience depending on the style of acting and the style of film or style of theater that you're doing. So it doesn't bother me one way or the other. I think sometimes it's a term that's used to pay actors less. But that has to do with the things that they're going to try to pay people as little as possible anyway. And there's a difference between an actor who can raise the money and an actor who can't raise the money, and that's a completely arbitrary line.
Yeah,
that's drawn by people who want to get their money back.
Right. All the people in the suits making decisions.
There's a lot of it's not a free art form. You need money, and you need a lot of it, even for a small film. So it's an understandable desire that people are going, yes, this is all great, but what's my return on my investment? I mean, it's not free, and it's understandable why it isn't. And when it's supported or subsidized, then there are other problems with it. It's a very difficult thing to do, film and television, particularly independent film.
So speaking of film and movies, let's dive in a little bit. I picked out a couple things from your career where I just spotlight and ask questions about. We have a couple questions in the chat, which I will get to. But your first big role, the big breakout, the thing that really kind of landed you was 1996, Fargo, Norm Gunderson. I'm curious, as you're coming into that, what did you take away from that experience, right? That first big movie, and you're in it,
Well, I mean, I had done two other films before that where I'd had one line each in the films. And when I got that job, I got it from Minnesota. I was working at the Guthrie Theater. And it was during a time where they had they had just started the tax rebates in Minnesota to draw film and television there. So it was called the Snow Bait because it's Minnesota, you know. And that's what they called it. And so there was a series of films that came in. And about 2/3 of the cast, probably, at least, of Fargo are local actors, of which I was working with many of them at the Guthrie at the time that the film was made. But the primary thing I took away from the experience was how quiet, how quiet and confident the set was, which I thought would always be the case, and it is not the case. And everybody who worked on that movie knew why they were there. They were there to do to work with those two guys. They were there to do a Coen Brothers film, and so many of the people behind the scenes had worked with them before, and so there was a kind of a quiet, a kind of a very smooth work process, and I thought, well, that's always like that. And then I did another movie where I was like, oh no, it's nothing like that. And there's all kinds of things going on here. So that was the primary thing I took away from it.
That's, yeah, I can imagine that, what an experience that was. Moving on, 1997, Face Off. It's one of my favorite movies just for how ridiculous of a movie it is. In the concept and all that. And I heard they're going to be making a sequel, which I'm very excited for. You play a prison guard in it, and you share some scenes with Nicolas Cage in there. I'm just curious, what was that experience like? Because I can only assume Nicolas Cage is Nicolas Cage in person.
Well, he was, it was a big, huge studio movie, right? I mean, it was the first studio movie I'd ever done, and the size of everything was on steroids. You'd come up. I worked a lot in Eagle Rock, California, at an electrical substation, which they used as the interior of the prison, to watch that massive amount of people get that thing done. John Woo is a master filmmaker and a master storyteller, and they had asked him I think they had insisted that he do storyboards for the entire film. He never looked at a single one of them once that he'd okayed, because he didn't need to. We were doing a scene where I was doing, I believe it was a scene in which I was doing an anal cavity search, as I recall. And he stood in the center of the room and called out three camera locations and 3 different film speeds for the 3 camera crews. And to do it from memory, to have that kind of control and mastery. Sorry, something came up. I hope you can still see me. Sorry, it came up. Okay, great. To have that kind of mastery, it's just incredible. Nick was amazingly funny on the set. When we were doing that scene with the body cavity search, they had built a platform so they could get below him for his responses to what I was doing, because they didn't really make it a porn, gratefully. And I said, "Do you need a cue of it?" And he goes, "What do you mean? What kind of cue are you going to give me?" We both laughed about that. But he was very funny, very charming. His acting work is so extraordinarily singular and so powerful, that he can go from these operatic level characters to the most subtle and powerful work. Pig is an extraordinary performance, and if you haven't seen that film, it's a great film. I fell in love with the film, and I knew Adam Arkin. I've known him for a while, and he's wonderful in the movie. And I called up and pestered him about it. I pestered him for the director's email because I wanted to talk to him about it. And I think it's one of Nick Cage's best performances. But beyond that, that you can go from that to, playing a grandiose version of yourself to, now he's doing Renfield. I love that he doesn't ever take a movie off. It doesn't matter what you think of it. He's going to go fully out to where he thinks the movie should be. There's never, he never phones it in, never calls, never. And I appreciate that. And, the movies are up and down as they are for all of us, but he never stops his commitment to what he thinks the movie's about.
Yeah. There's claims of like, oh, he really hammed it up. And I think it's, if he feels that was right for that character, like that was.
Yeah. I mean, about a few weeks ago, Con Air was on, so I watched a little bit of that. When you've got a line that says "put the bunny down," you really got to, you got to find a way to live with that. And he did. He did.
Make the most of it.
I mean, I don't think it's like asking Bill Shatner if he's taking it seriously. Yes, of course he is. Of course he is. Can't you tell?
Yeah.
He's completely taking it seriously. That's why he has those amazing line readings.
I think there are those kind of actors that transcend the form. I think like Christopher Walken is one of those guys where he's going to do it his way, but it's because he thinks that's the best way to do it.
And here's another thing about that, which I always wonder about. I mean, you like music. Who's your favorite? Who's your favorite guitarist? Do you have a favorite guitarist?
Yeah, I'm a weirdo in that I like every genre of music. I don't pick one. So I'll go from Linkin Park to Brad Paisley to I'm all over the map.
Okay, so nobody says to themselves, "Yeah, Clapton's great, but he didn't play like B.B. King." It's like, yeah, he doesn't play like B.B. King. B.B. King plays like B.B. King. I think that when I came up in acting, there was this thing about being able to, transform and to disappear. And I loved, I personally love that. I mean, I love when people forget that it's me. But people don't forget it's you because of what mustache you're wearing. There's something that happens inside. And some people go like, I'm not even, like Harry Dean Stanton was like, he said this on a chat show, which was really funny. He got a job in Missouri Breaks, and he was working with his old friend, Jack Nicholson. And Jack Nicholson says, I want you to play this part, but I don't want you to act at all. And he never did it again. I mean, in his mind, he never acted again. And I think it's an interesting thing to let go of the idea that you have to become someone different absolutely and completely every time. But you have to change what's inside yourself to something new every time. And that, I think, is crucial in whatever piece you're doing. And there are times where physical transformation is necessary. But it's not the be-all, end-all of acting.
Sure. That's good stuff, man. That's exactly why we bring it here, because these are the things, like, again, from a complete I don't know anything about filmmaking. I'm just a fan. I'm an observer. I'm a lover. I watch it. I take it all in. So to hear those nuances and what goes into it, and the creative processes and how you get to that place, like, this is all super fascinating to me. And
the bottom line of it is the way Morgan Freeman does it, which is, he says, I'm a research scientist, and in your mind you go, you're a research scientist. And in another one he goes, I'm God, and you go, you're God. And then, I'm a convicted murderer. You're a convicted murderer. There's never a moment you don't think to yourself, you're not a convicted murderer. Like, he just tells you what he is, and then he is that. And that's the simplest, purest way acting works.
It's so spot on. There are a bunch of questions. I'm gonna get to them, guys. Hold on to 1 second. We're gonna get to them. I want to knock out a couple more credits, and then we're gonna dive into some questions from the audience. So jump ahead. 1997 through 2004, you are in the Drew Carey Show. You played Drew Carey's brother, Steve Carey. 74 episodes. I mean, that's a huge job. You know, for those that don't know it, I mean, it's a whole different beast. Acting in a movie to being on set on a TV show or being a series regular or what have you. What was that experience like for you, taking on such a big role of that show?
Well, I mean, to say it was a big role, it's interesting. That show was on for so long. I did 74 episodes, and I'm not on a third of the shows.
Sure.
I mean, that's how many Drew Careys there are. And it was a really fun set to be on because the people were really, really funny. And I enjoyed playing the character, although the character changed midstream in the show because, I was a cross-dresser to begin on the show. And when I got to be an irregular on the show, the first season I was given a contract, I was a recurring character. And for the first 2 seasons I was on the show. And they tested and they were like, well, America doesn't really love the dresses, so we're just going to lose those. And I was like, okay, well, I don't wonder who I am now. I wonder who that character is. It was an interesting struggle as they tried to figure out what the voice of the character was, and I tried to figure it out. And I don't know that we ever did, but the show was always funny, and the show was a circus of a show. They didn't. In a way, it was a precursor, or it learned from other shows like the Gary Shandling show or other shows that it had a bit of a meta feeling to it. So you didn't really think it took place in a real Cleveland. There was no moment where you thought, like, this is a real Cleveland. No, it wasn't. It wasn't like Good Times where you're like, we're in Chicago and only Chicago things happen that take place in this apartment. It was like a bear drives by. Okay, that's the kind of show. Lewis and Oswald build a house in the middle of a park. You just go, okay, I'm just going to go with this because it's not about... it's about these characters. It's character comedy. And I loved working on the show. It was and I also had the good fortune of being able to go do other things while I was doing that show, which was crucial.
Yeah. It always reminded me, I loved that show growing up. It always reminded me of like, if you took an improv troupe and then like built an actual set of, okay, you're going to come in and you're going to say this and this, and then it's like, and obviously Ryan Stiles is a legend in Whose Line Is It Anyway? One of my favorite character guys. But yeah, it definitely seemed like this was fun and energetic and kind of trying to put a tornado in a bottle kind of thing. It really had a whimsically funny. What was funny was king, and whether or not it made sense was not important. And you know what? I like that. I mean, it's a style of stuff that I like, and I haven't done a lot of comedy in a while, and it's always fun to do, and I miss doing it more because it has, it's just a lot of it's a lot of fun. Not that drama isn't or horror isn't, but it's a different kind of fun. Sure. All right, we'll take an audience break here to answer some of their questions. From Heath, he wants to know, I guess, when you got into it, what was your first big purchase, right? When that first big Hollywood paycheck came a coming, what'd you spoil yourself? What was your first big purchase?
When I first came to LA, I'd been working as a theater actor and making a living as a theater actor, and what I'd hoped to happen in Los Angeles was, man, I really hope I can buy a new Saturn someday. I hope I can buy a Saturn. That would be awesome. The things that, what was my first big purchase? I didn't really buy stuff. A house, that was a big purchase, pretty big purchase. And most of the things that I do with money that are, expending things are going places. I like traveling, and I like experiencing that. I don't need a lot. The older I get, I think it's because I'm living. When I have the good fortune of working, I'm almost always out of a suitcase. Sure. So your car. I'm a carny, so I really don't don't think I need a lot.
Plays one on TV too.
Yes, exactly. I have on several, because I don't know what it is about me and carnivals, but between Bubble Boy and Carnival and Freak Show, it's like there's something about me and circus performers that works out well.
Yeah,
for me.
I'm not even going to try to guess.
Yeah, I won't. Best not question the mojo.
Yeah, whatever it works, it works.
Whatever works.
So, this might be a tough one. Your favorite, and I don't want to get in trouble, least favorite person to work with.
My favorite and least favorite person to work with.
You want to burn bridges now?
Okay, I'm not going to burn any bridges. I can tell you, my least favorite person to work with is me. Like I've been an asshole on more than one occasion, and has never helped anybody, and certainly hasn't helped my work. That's 100% the truth. My favorite person to work with, man, there's been so many wonderful people. I'm going to say Fran McDormand, only insofar as Fran was the first, person I shared scenes with on film, and her generosity of spirit, her kindness, and her presence, particularly her presence, really taught me more about acting on film than anybody. And another person who did that for me was Benicio del Toro in a movie called Things We Lost in the Fire. He just has a way of being so present that nothing ever that one moment blends into another in a way that's so exciting and inspiring.
I like that. From Deborah, what type of roles do you like to play the best?
Oftentimes, it's about what a character says that makes me attracted to it. It's oftentimes a phrase or a word or a joke. It runs the gamut from, having the joy of, running in and tackling Steve Carell to in, The Walking Dead, having a character that says we're not built to kill, that all life is precious. That those are things I do believe, and it's great to have a character actually say them earnestly and honestly. There's also the fun of doing accents or transformative work. So I get attracted to all of the pieces of things quite a bit. But keep in mind, this is something, there are very few people who actually choose their work. Work chooses you. So you have a tendency to, over the course of time, to begin to see what kind of relationship you have to the material and what your instrument seems to be attuned for. And I think that has a lot to do with how people are perceived.
Sure. To do a sports analogy, very few athletes get to choose where they play. Most, you have to be passionate about the game and go out and play.
There's the passion of the game, but there's also like some things that are physically determinative. That's it, determinative. So, like, I don't know if you've read The Blind Side or in The Blind Side, one of the things about Michael Orr is his ass is huge. He's really fast on his feet and his ass is huge. Yep. And that makes him a great left tackle. It's like a friend of mine wanted so desperately to be a ballet dancer. And she worked so hard at it, and she got to the Cleveland Ballet, but it was through sheer force of will, because her body bore no relationship to a ballet dancer. Mm-hmm. And that's changed a little bit in ballet, but there are determinative factors. Like, I did a movie called, oh man, I'm forgetting it now. Forget the name of it. Anyway, I played Love Happens. So I played a character who was in a grief counseling session. And in one of the scenes, we all go to a Home Depot together. The whole grief session gets on a bus and goes to the Home Depot. It's all to help my character go through his grief. And they all got off the bus, and then Aaron Eckhart and I got off the bus on a crane shot. And the crane rises and shows the Home Depot, and we're all going in, about 30 of us. And I saw the shot and thought, why am I going into that store with 30 children? I mean, I was twice the size of anybody else in the scene. And, you know, there's things that I, from my physical nature, will not, it's a dynamic that has to be accepted. And you can change it like they did with Jonathan Rhys Davies in, you know, or Ian McKellen in the Lord of the Rings, but you don't do that very often. That's not very often what happens. Very often, most of the time, you know, this thing comes with me, and I've got to. This is my instrument, so you have to play with what you've got.
That's a great way to put it. Deborah also mentions you're also a director, which hopefully we'll get into. Does your experience as an actor, I would assume, play into that and give you kind of insight into to help you as a director?
I certainly felt like it did when I directed the film I've directed so far, and I feel like it's helping me with the films I want to direct and the way in which I think about them and talk to the writers and write myself. And I think all that comes character, performance, things that I rely on in terms of those things, or what I'm called to direct, have those elements. Yeah, but I mean, it certainly does. And the reverse is true, which is having directed something changes the way in which I act as well.
That was actually going to be my next question. Is it must, when you go, oh, okay, I see why he's the guy's always telling me to do this, because now being on the other side, you see what it is they're seeing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and also you realize that your purpose is to provide theme and variation work for the director to have different choices about an individual moment or individual scene. And you have to also be careful of what you provide, which is a different way of looking at it. You know, each collaboration is different, but I that's an important part of the job of an actor, is to provide color, tempo changes, and the truth as they see it.
From Patrick in the chat, he says, in your role in oh my God, I can read, I promise. In your role in Mercury Rising, if I recall, yes, you played the father of an autistic child. That was the first movie that I can recall seeing that had accurately depicted a child with severe autism. From your perspective, how much of a pain was Dr. Bennett Leventhal, one of the technical directors? Apparently he's heard his side of the story about it being a pain to kind of work and critique. So any insight?
I mean, I don't know. I never met the technical director.
Okay.
Or if I did, I don't recall it. Harold Becker directed the film. And Nico Hughes did the work as my son in the movie, and obviously as the charge for most of the film with Bruce Willis. I'm glad someone, I assume this person is saying it has experience with people on the spectrum, on the autistic spectrum, and that they felt that it was related well. I'm glad of that. I mean, obviously that's a tribute to everybody concerned, that they wanted to do the work right, so that people could recognize themselves in the work, which is, of course, what all of us should be doing.
So many more questions, but we're going to get back.
I'm just struck by how hilarious I am on this. I'm struck by the amount of jokes that I'm coming to. Like, it's just awesome. Like, my timing is so good. Like, I can't tell you how hilarious this stuff is.
You're doing great. It's going so well. To jump to the other spectrum of acting, Bubble Boy, 2001. Again, it's a movie that I love for how campy and silly and ridiculous it is. But I absolutely love it. You played the dad of Jake Gyllenhaal, Mr. Livingston. There's so many questions I could ask about that movie, but what I'm really curious is, a couple years later, you're in Zodiac again with Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yep. And had the good girl in between.
And that's right. And the good girl. That's true.
I played his boss in the film.
So getting to see that the growth of him as an actor, what did you take away as where he improved as an actor?
Well, I mean, he's extremely talented, and I think it's like you watch somebody grow as an actor, and then there's something that happens that turns a key. And man, I really love Nightcrawler. I thought that was like, whoa, Jake's onto something amazing. Prisoners, he's onto some amazing stuff. Now, I really enjoyed working on Bubble Boy with him. I adored Swoosie Kurtz and Danny Trejo, who I got to act with in the film. But the whole Blair Hayes, the director, and the whole thing was just insane. And the way in which it went through the studio system was insane. And it's a movie that would never be made today, never in a million years. And of course, at the time, it was, it went on to the Today Show. They went on to the Today Show to talk about the movie. And I think they had Blair on, which was interesting because you would think it would be actors because Blair Hayes was not a famous director at the time. And they asked him, why did you make a movie that was a comedy about somebody with an autoimmune deficiency? And he was like, wait, what? Like he was suddenly defending making fun of people with a terminal, very dangerous disease. And he couldn't tell the truth, which is he doesn't have it. It's just a really crazy mom who talked him into having it. Mm-hmm. He can't say that. So he's having to defend a movie he didn't make, and the movie was summarily dismissed, but it has become a cult classic, and I'm really glad because I think it's really funny, and it makes fun of everybody. There is nobody who gets off. No one. Everyone gets skewered in that, and at the end, I end up on a motorcycle in a relationship that's a threesome between Danny Trejo, Swoosie Kurtz, and myself, and we're doing the thing, and we're getting on the bike, and Danny's in front, and he goes, "Scooch on up, man. I've been in prison. It's okay." It was hilarious. I mean, I laughed on that movie quite a bit, and it was really fun to play a character again, a silent character for the most part, which I've done a couple of times now, and I like it a lot.
When I'm sad, I play that movie just because it lifts. Oh,
good. I'm glad. It's so just so silly. It's so silly.
And then again, your career, like I looked through the thing, and it's like these wild swings of different types of characters. Because in Zodiac, you're playing this could be a killer, might not be a killer, and it I watched an interview of yours where you said the director had you play him as if he was not the killer, which was actually a question. Is like, was your character to be the killer or not be the killer? So going into something like that, did you have an opinion one way or the other of how you wanted to play it, or you were willing to go wherever they needed you to go?
I mean, I think it's a combination of things. He gave me, he and the historian on the film, the only time I've ever been on a film where they had a historian. They gave me videotapes and transcripts and the 2 books and pictures and maps and locations, and they walked me through a huge timeline that was taped to David Fincher's office wall, and where all the major suspects were at any individual time during the various murders. So it was exhaustive, and and Fincher as a director has earned trust. You're not going into it thinking, I can't trust that guy. So, you do the work with the assumption that they know what they're doing. Back in Fargo, we were doing the first thing I did was at her office, and we were eating the Arby's. And, the case interrupts it. My friend Bruce Bonney, who was playing, the other, Lou, the deputy, comes in and gives her some information. And I listened to the information in the rehearsals. I'm listening to the information, and Joel and Ethan are going, yeah, he doesn't care. He doesn't care about it at all. And Fran and I had a conversation beforehand of how we met, and maybe this. And I said, well, we were thinking maybe, he was a cop at one point. And he's like, no, that's not it. And you go, okay, well, I'll play this as I'll play. I can see I don't care. And when you watch the movie, you realize he doesn't care about her work, which means that she can see a foot in a wood chipper, and come home and never be asked about it, and be in a world of 3-cent stamps and duck paintings. And it allows her a safe haven, a warm place to live in a cold world. And with that's what that choice meant. Well, in Zodiac, he said, I'd like you to play these scenes as if he's innocent. It wasn't that Fincher thought the character was innocent. On the contrary, he makes a pretty definitive statement that it is Arthur Lee Allen at the end of the film. The last scene in the movie is him looking, Graysmith looking Lee in the eyes, and them both kind of dropping the facade of who they're pretending to be. And it was great to have history with Jake to do that scene, but it was also really funny because he's like, man, it's you and Chris Cooper. I seem to be coming around and seeing it again and again and again. That's pretty good company.
Hey, nothing wrong with that.
Nope.
And we're running short on time, and again, you have we've made it to 2007. This is as far as we've gotten so far. We're gonna skip over Gran Torino, Shutter Island, The Founder, which I thought was phenomenal. You getting to play one of the original McDonald's. Awesome. We obviously got to touch on real quick American Horror Story. And I mean, your character, the character of Twisty the Clown, is like across the internet, beloved and I don't know what the word for it, feared, revered. People think it's one of the greatest scary killer villains in TV history. Going into it, were you apprehensive of playing this kind of twisted, demented character? Were you looking forward to it? What was your feeling going into it?
Well, Ryan Murphy, my manager called and said, Ryan Murphy would like to talk to you about American Horror Story. And I was like, yes, please. And he said, I want you to come and play the most terrifying clown in the history of television. He said, it's only a few episodes and he's mostly silent, but don't worry, it'll pay off. And, I said, yes, of course. I mean, of course I would do that. And, it was a matter of trusting him and trusting everybody involved. But when you go on a set for those American Horror Stories, the art direction, the costume design, the makeup, the special effects is all A-list people. And from the very beginning, the image that they had for the character was the starting point of who the character was. And then watching Ryan direct, oftentimes you can tell by how a director's body is behaving while they give you the note. That's oftentimes how you get underneath it. That certainly was true of Ryan. Ryan's body started to play the character that he wanted it to be. And so between those things, but it was amazing, the response of people on the set. Like I was at lunch once with Michael Chiklis, and we were talking about something. I was in the makeup, and he stopped me in the middle and goes, you know what? I can't talk to you anymore. This is too, nope. He took a stray and walked out. He goes, we'll have dinner some other time when you're not wearing that. I can't do it.
I mean, that tells you something. It really tapped into something. And people who have feelings about clowns, or people who have feelings about people in masks, which there's a lot of people, have such passionate responses to it. Like, I used to hate clowns until, or I used to hate clowns and I hate clowns even more, or I used to like clowns and I hate clowns now.
And the American Clown Society was really upset about it. We're not all sociopathic killers, everybody. And it's like, yeah, we know, but we think you are. We're pretty sure you are.
Mathematically,
sure. Yeah, there's one or two that aren't, but come on, most of you got to be, right?
In any given population, there's a small percentage that are
one or two people
crazy
who aren't sociopathic killers. Exactly.
Is there something? Okay, like we live in a society, right, where we have to follow rules and we have to follow laws and we have to behave a certain way, and is there something I can imagine freeing of playing an unhinged character, a person that lives outside morals and laws and just does what they want? Is there something freeing about that?
Yes. Yes. But the best part about it is that nobody gets hurt when you're doing it.
Well, sure.
Right? Like I was on a movie called Paul, and we blew up a house on the movie. They blew up a house. So they're going to blow up this house, and they've got cameras set up and remote cameras set up. And, the entire cast and crew and the office staff and everybody is now a half a football field or more away. And you see the light, you feel the blast, and you hear the sound. And there's a house, boom, no house. Like, that's how fast it was gone. And I've never seen 200 people happier than that. But you've been in places where that happens for real, and it is not funny, and it is not fun. One of the reasons why it was fun is nobody was there. Yes, and I'm sure there's a lot of fun to destroy things. That's fun, sure it is. But it also has consequences, and in that case, there were no consequences.
Yeah.
So when I'm stabbing somebody, as Twisty the Clown, I'm stabbing a piece of wood. Everybody, it's just I'm gleefully stabbing a piece of wood, which is a lot easier than stabbing a human being.
I would hope so. I would hope so.
Yeah, I would hope so for most of us.
We're out of time, and I have so many questions. Maybe in the future we can bring you back because, again, you have such an incredible career, and there's so much to dive into. One last question, just because I'm fascinated by this. You've been married since 1997.
Yes.
What's the secret to a long, happy marriage?
As my brother-in-law said, not getting divorced. That's the key to any long marriage. Don't get divorced. My wife is an incredible person and has dealt with a lot of problems that I have created. And it's all marriages are a work in progress, and they're a daily choice. And we've chosen over 35 years each day to stay married. So, hopefully tomorrow we'll say yes again.
Every day you got to say yes. I love it.
Every day you got to say yes.
Is there anything? I mean, again, we cracked not even half your amazing career. Is there anything upcoming that you want people to look out for or promote?
On HBO, there's a wonderful series by the people who made Veep called White House Plumbers. It's about the Watergate break-ins. I think it's going to be fantastic. I made a movie with Mario Van Peebles called Outlaws. I don't know when that's going to be. It was the first Western I've ever done. That was really fun. And I just did ADR today for what's presently called the Untitled Pregnancy Project, directed by Pamela Adlon and starring Alana Glazer. And I'm not going to butcher her name, but she's a wonderful comedian. Who's Michelle, I'm not going to do her last name because I'm going to say it wrong, but she was great. And I think the movie's going to be really funny. What I saw today was really fun.
Oh, that's exciting. I can't wait to watch it. White House Plumbers has also been on my list for quite some time. I've known about it, and I'm excited to see that. Do you have, you want to plug your social media? Where can people follow you, reach you?
People can follow me at Mr. JC Lynch. On Instagram and Twitter for the time being. I don't know when that'll end or what's going on there, but I enjoy following people, and it's fun still. So Twitter and Instagram are primarily my things, and they're both at Mr. JC Lynch.
Outstanding. we got to get you back in the future, talk about more of your projects and more of the things you're doing, and dive even deeper into your career. This has been just a joy for me. Thank you so much for coming on and being a part of this. Thank you. The audience has loved every minute of it. They've been hanging on every word of yours and all your jokes. All of them landed.
All of them. All three landed. Of those were nailed.
Nailed it. You still got the comedic timing, brother. You still got it. All right, guys. Stay tuned for more show. I'm going to toss it to break. I'm going to say goodbye to our guest, and we'll be back with more right after this. I'll give you the. Go ahead. Take it away. Say bye to the audience, and we'll toss it to the break.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for coming to see the show, and stay through the break.
All right, guys. This is John Carroll Lynch. We'll be back with more.